All right, everyone, welcome back to Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil. And in this video, what we're going to talk about is to kind of answer like an FAQ I saw about raids and with the Crate Dragon raid, some of the fears players have. So I hopefully want to put that at ease for you guys. We're going to talk about resource management, particularly is buying character shards worth it? And then finally, guys, I'm just going to kind of give you an update on the channel a little bit. So we're going to dive right into that first, update for the channel. So I've seen a lot of the comments. We've been growing really, really quickly. And, one of the things that I know you guys have always asked, right? Like, you want to Relic 8 Wampa, and people are asking for Relic 9. Like, we will Relic 8 Wampa on a special live stream when we hit 5,000 subscribers. I'm also looking at getting a microphone. I know that's a comment that you guys have had for a while. Hey, can we get a microphone? Like, audio quality, not the greatest. I understand that, guys. I just want you to understand I have not been really creating content for all that long. And just with some other things in my personal life where, I don't need to get into all the details and have it, throw myself a pity party, but just there are some other expenses that I've had being a father that took precedence over buying a microphone for Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes videos. So, hopefully you guys can understand that, appreciate it. I really cannot thank you guys enough for how much this channel has grown. So let's dive into the meat of our video and let's talk about managing resources, particularly buying character shards. So I'm going to show you guys Skiffguard Lando here for my Jabba farm. If I was to go and be able to buy these shards in the store, right, I think they would cost about 80 crystals per drop. So if I was to go buy those shards for crystals, I would get Lando faster, but I would not get Jabba faster. And here's the reasoning for that. I still need a crazy amount of signal data for my characters. Right? You look like I don't even have enough to take Bush Leia to Relic 5. So I still need a lot more signal data for this team. So in the time that I'm going to be farming up these Skiffguard Lando shards, I'm going to be earning signal data where I'll finish off Bush Leia, and then maybe I'll get C-3PO to Relic 7, and then I can keep on building the rest of these characters up through some gear, throwing relic materials at them. So by saving those crystals, I could use those crystals on other things. Maybe I could speed up my Inquisitor farm. Maybe I could speed up something else that I need, buy a gear piece, mods, whatever the case is. A bonus pack of carbonite circuit boards. Biggest thing players will do is they'll get these shards for Skiffguard Lando. And maybe they'll get him to relics because they're like, yes, I can get him to relic, we'll get him to relic 0. And then they're going to hit this point where they're like, oh, I don't have enough signal data. And then they not only spent all those crystals to get the signal data or to get him here, used all the gear, then you still have all these other things. So you didn't really get Jabba any faster because the time it takes you to get the rest of these things, you could get this character. Now, again, there are situations where maybe that's not the case. If I would go to something like my Inquisitors, and you guys will see here, like I've got 2 Inquisitors, almost 7-star, maybe like 5th brother. He's going to be the last Inquisitor that I go and farm because he's in the cantina and I'm going to want to get signal data. So maybe I start buying 5th brother shards because I recognize that I don't want to spend as much time farming cantina. So if you had to ask somebody, is it smarter to buy Skiffguard Lando shards for me or buy 5th brother? Most people would probably say Skiffguard Lando because he's harder to farm. But I would argue that 5th brother shards are more valuable to me because right now, how much time it's going to take me to farm him, if I buy those shards, that's saving me time way down the road, getting me to that point earlier. So that's the situation that I would argue is that he's going to hold up when I farm my Inquisitors. He's the one that's going to hold up my signal data farm for them, right? That as soon as I'm done with Jabba, I got his stuff. I'm going to start farming 5th brother. He's the one that's going to hold up my signal data for the rest of these characters. So the sooner I'm done with him, the sooner I get back to signal data. And that's the argument you need to make with yourself. Understand when you can buy those character shards and they're helping you versus the other situation where, it's not really going to get you that many faster because of everything else you need. So just understand that concept. And maybe the flip side of that would be, oh, I've got 5th brother at stars, right? But, I've got him 7-star, but I don't have enough Chirotechs for this team. Well, maybe I buy 8th brother shards because, he's taking up space that I need, and I'm using that energy instead of being able to buy, farm Chirotech. So just understand how those shards are going to impact your account. Because I see it a lot with character shards. I think with other things, players are pretty good with their crystals. But with character shards, I think sometimes our logic kind of, like, we leave our logic at the door and we just focus on getting a character to 7-star and not really ask if it's going to impact us if it's really going to impact our farm in a meaningful way. All right, so that's resource management there. So the last point I want to cover here, guys, right? We talked about the channel update, shards there. We need to talk about raids. And we have the Crate Dragon raid coming up. And again, this is your current hot cartel team. The 5th slot, Boba, Embo, somebody. I don't know how crazy they'll go with the raid. If it's going to be, you know what, you don't use any of these characters together, that you're actually going to use like Jabba with Greedo and Mob Enforcer and Gamorrean Guard or whatever, right? We don't know the route they're going to go yet. Part of me hopes it's something like this just because these are the characters people are investing in, but who knows, right? Maybe it's going to be something completely different and we're going to have to figure that out. The other team I have down here is just something that I'd kind of almost hope happens, is that Armor Shred plays a big role. That you have the Armor who can apply Armor Shred, you've got Sabine Wren who can apply Armor Shred, and then the Mandalorians with all their attacks out of turn. That the way it sounds with the Crate Dragon raid, that you want to deal massive damage all at once, and if they've got a couple of Armor Shreds kind of, put onto that character, that boss all at once, you can deal a lot of damage with them. So I really, would be curious to see how this plays into, how this comes to fruition with these, Armor Shred. Again, just something I hope for. And the reason I hope for stuff like this, where you're kind of using you're using multiple mechanics at once, that instead of something like, if I click on the Mandalorian faction, right, this is maybe a good way to show you. The Mandalorian faction, I could throw Django in here because Django's a huge damage dealer. You could throw somebody like, Beskar Armor Mando, or maybe OG Mando, because he's going to deal more damage. But adding in Sabine and the Armorer in here for that Armor Shred is taking into account that not only is Maul going to hit harder, right? Like, Maul won't really hit harder because he's dealing that, true damage kind of thing. But somebody like Canderous, he's going to hit harder when he's assisting. They'll both hit harder. And then Beskar Armor Mando's here, I think, just for that damage immunity. But maybe you take him out and say, you know what? We want Gar Saxon because he's a tank and that's going to help us, or whatever, right? So again, just something I've been thinking about. And the reason I hope it's something like this, where you're using multiple mechanics at once, is because that's the way raids used to be. So these teams up in here, right, all 3 of these teams could solo the Heroic Pit Raid. All of them had the first 2 especially, was all about turn meter removal. The more turn meter you removed with these teams, the better. I'm not going to go into exactly how this worked, guys. I want you to trust me on this, like, especially this team up here. This could beat the entire Heroic Pit Raid with, long before relics ever existed. Same thing with these ones right here. They cleared, and I've done it with these 2, plenty of times. Then you could even get down into the Heroic AAT raid, where this team, guys, this is the team that made me fall in love with Wampa. I have a whole video talking about how this kind of played together. But with all the dots that you would stack with Vader, Wampa can stack damage over time. His offense is going to ramp throughout the battle. Wampa starts dealing a lot of damage. Vader's Culling Blade is doing crazy hits. And BB-8, giving buffs out. Like, you could really do a lot of damage with this team inside of that AAT raid and solo it. And then we got into even like the Heroic Sith raid, where like Resistance was just a really good faction early on. Like, you could I remember dealing 4 million damage with this team one time at, gear 11, gear 12s. And that was like crazy. Like, my guild was super impressed. And then like this team was a phase 3 team where you used Deathmark and you isolated Han. You stood alone with Han and he would counter Darth Treya and deal crazy amounts of damage that way. Then we kind of transitioned into this phase where I think we almost lost some of the good old days, where this team could solo phase 3 and phase 4 of the Heroic Sith raid. I did it. I never got phase 4 to work, but I did get phase 3 to work all the time here. And then you had teams like General Skywalker come in, who in reality was technically capable of soloing the raid, but reality, it was a phase 1 solo easy because General Skywalker doesn't lose health while there's other 501st active, and Darth Nihilus ignores protection. So your General Skywalker just kind of stands there, takes damage, and nothing happens. The reason I say technically capable, getting through phase 2 was a very big RNG ask, but if you did get through phase 2, you could then get into the Treya node, which was a lot easier for this team to beat, so on and so forth. Then we got Galactic Legends, and you just kind of put lull, right? That we kind of lost, like even with this team, General Skywalker 2 and the Night Sisters, we lost a lot of the theory crafting. So if you ever wonder why some of us who are more veteran players say we miss some of those things, is this used to be content that you could play, right? That like you worked to get this done. You worked to get this done. When you go and solo a raid, like speaking from experience, soloing raids is boring. You're doing the same move over again. Like just it's rinse, wash, and repeat. There's no I don't want to say there's no strategy. There's a overarching strategy of what you're doing, but there's no strategy as to I'm going to do this. Like this was a auto basic. You would literally tap an auto basic once you got this set up, and it would go do its thing. With something like this, there was strategy to it. You had to understand when to make the right move, when to put this out, when to do that. Even with this team, it was the same thing, with Nihilus, timing and hitting those exposes, using the right moves. This team there was definitely some strategy involved, particularly with Commander Luke on when to remove turn meter in phases 1 and phases 3. This team was an auto. You could auto it. But the rest of these teams, they really had a lot more strategy than just throwing in a Galactic Legend team and posting 2%. And that's my hope for the Krayt Dragon Raid, is that they're going to try and get us back to this point where maybe not using something as ridiculous as this, but that you're using multiple mechanics inside of a team together for the benefit, that you're not just there because Kylo deals, insanely stupid amounts of damage. That, okay, you're going to stack the armor shreds. Okay, Whistling Birds deal a lot more damage if the character's debuffed. Oh, these attacks out of turn are really, really good. Whatever the case is, I hope it's stuff like this. Again, I just wanted to use a few examples here. But that's the video, guys. Hopefully trip down memory lane will kind of make you guys laugh that how do you know if you're in the good old days now rather than they were the good old days back then. But yeah, guys, like and subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts are. As always, I love every single one of you. May the force be with you. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Cheers.